All right. Welcome to another Pro Football Doc Sports Injury Central podcast here. Very special live podcast. We have a live guest with us here. Taylor and Doug are in the background still. We'll do the regular podcast afterwards, but wanted to get on the great Aaron Schatz before the season started. We use his information. As a matter of fact, in front of me here is last year's edition of the book. We got the other guys have this year's edition, right? This is in our war room right here, right now, still left over from last year, and wanted to have you on and chat again. I know you've been on before, and we at Sports Injury Central, we concentrate on injury stuff, but we really love all of the things you've done at all your different places, and we just always want to have you on to chat about synergies and help you educate our audience and about the latest coming out from you. So welcome to the show.
Thanks. It's always good to be on. Talk a lot about the book in the preseason. For folks who want to know where to get it, you can go to ftnfantasy.com/almanac. I'll point out that the San Francisco chapter is our sample chapter this year, so folks can read that for free. And injuries obviously are a big deal, and they're part of our projection system. And so we track that every year.
Well, that's great. Well, you mentioned the 49ers. Here's where we disagree. You had San Francisco, and I'm joking, you had San Francisco as the most injured team last year. We had him as the second most, but, splitting hairs.
Yeah, I think with Carolina, we had second or third, and you had first. So it probably has to do with either whether we're weighting certain players or positions more, or whether we're including certain players or positions in.
No question. I joke about that. It's rounding error.
I mean, we know who was injured last year. Baltimore was not, and San Francisco and Carolina were. The exact ranks don't matter, but what matters is the general hint of just which teams really, really, really struggled with injuries and therefore are likely to see some regression to the mean.
Gotcha. So since you bring up injuries and we talk about injuries, tell us and tell the audience how you use injuries and what you guys do at FTN and for DVOA and all your things.
Well, when we're looking back at a season, we don't do any adjustments for injuries. We talk about them like it's an explanation, right? I mean, one explanation for why Baltimore was number one last year is that they didn't have many injuries, although they were number one the year before and had an average number of injuries. So when it comes to project the following season, though, we incorporate the injuries a lot. Now, what I don't do, and this is sort of interesting, I think, I don't use a variable that's just how many injuries each team had. What I do is there are personnel variables that I use for players moving from team to team from season to season. And I also incorporate players coming back from major injuries. So if a guy's missed most of the year, I count that as if a team added a free agent of the same quality. And that gives us those personnel variables gives us good help guide to which teams are getting more talent back and which teams have lost some talent based on free agency.
Okay. So in the example of San Francisco, Brandon Ayuk was lost with his ACL tear. So are you saying Brandon Ayuk is like an addition and healthy, or how do you factor that in? Because
I think we gave them a little bit of credit for Ayuk being healthy. And then when I do the simulation of the season, I take Ayuk away for the first few weeks.
There you go. That's kind of what we're saying. Like, he's still likely, and I just saw a video of him, he's still favoring his knee some. He's going to play this year, but he's going to have a stronger second half than first half. So
we have a thing in our projection system where we can actually put in, give the team this penalty for weeks 1 to 4, and then give that team the penalty 80% of the time in week 5 and 60% of the time in week 6. And so we try to sort of estimate when a player is going to be back. If he's going to be back between week 5 and 8, we'll gradually remove the penalty for that team. This is obviously a very big deal when it comes to quarterbacks in season.
No, absolutely. So in some ways we do similar things because we change our 6 scores on a weekly basis based on what information is coming in. for example, we do expect Ayuk to not start the season playing, right? And then,
Right.
but when he does, depending on how he's doing and what we think, just for now, we take out scheme and coaching and whatever. We expect the lines and whatever to take care of that, but we'll gradually raise the pure health score for a Brandon Ayuk over time, kind of like you do, but we do it on a hands-on, week-by-week basis, very qualitatively, I suppose. And your approach is much more quantitative.
Yes, and also you're looking, I'm thinking, at more injuries when it comes to during the season, and I'm accounting for injuries in our playoff odds projections. But for the most part, I'm only accounting for quarterbacks or the very best of other players. I don't try to count every little injury, like, this safety is going to miss a couple of games and this corner is going to miss a game or two. And my guess is for SIC, you guys are doing more.
We absolutely do more, but one, perhaps, look, what you do is great, so take no offense at this, but maybe one soft suggestion, because it is impossible and very difficult to take every single injury, and quite honestly, does every injury really matter? One of the things we struggle with, for example, not just to make this a San Francisco podcast, but since we've talked about San Francisco a bunch and it's your free chapter, so to speak, at safety, Hufanga, we penalized the 49ers quite a bit to start because of Hufanga's absence, but we started to keep rising that score because in our mind, Hufanga lost his job to Mustafa, and Mustafa's very good. And so there's no penalty. So by mid and late season, there was no penalty anymore. Sometimes the backup comes in and is very good. And we do account for that. For example, when Trent Williams, once again on the 49ers, is out, there is a big drop at his left tackle 6 score. When it's the right tackle, it's less so because the delta, is not as much to the number 2. But we gradually we raised Mustafa all season long in that position. But one suggestion that we found really most powerful, and I don't know how you account for this, or maybe it's hard to, is that let's say on an offensive line, when you have the left tackle who's good out and a left guard who's out, but the right tackle now has to flip to left tackle and it's a backup right tackle, and what we call cluster injuries on an offensive line or Detroit Lions defense, like cluster injuries, I think ring the bell. One isolated injury may not ring the bell, but cluster injuries do. Look at the Detroit Lions on defense last year, and that's why we were against them in the playoffs. Look at any situation, but that might be something that you might be able to incorporate.
I will say for adjusted games lost, which is our main metric that we compute at the end of the season, we track guys. So adjusted games lost only includes starters, very important situational players, and what we call new starters. And new starters are players who would be starters because of an injury, but they themselves get injured. And so that's where you get those cascades you're talking about. Going back to San Francisco as an example, Elijah Mitchell, we only counted as a starter in weeks that Christian McCaffrey was injured, because the idea was if Elijah Mitchell had not gone out for the season, he would have been the backup, and thus he would have been the starter. So when McCaffrey was injured, they really had 2 running backs injured because they were losing both McCaffrey and Mitchell. And then by the end of the season, it got really bad because they lost Mason, and then they lost Garendo, and they were down to their 5th running back. And you get those cascades of injuries at certain positions.
Yeah, we definitely want to concentrate on cascades of injuries, but we'll even say clusters. Let's say, 3 out of 4 starting secondary are out, right? That's a cluster injury, not just at one position for depth. And obviously we make it simple by color coding. And one of the things I've been telling the guys to do, and we just haven't done it yet because we do it, but we want to do what I call stacking dolls. Like for the 49er situation, you can then see green McCaffrey, but red, the backups. Or you see red McCaffrey followed by a green, followed by red, or 2 reds and a green, right? Then you see the depth. Now, we actually try and take that account into the scores as much as possible. We incorporate backup depth into the score because we're just trying to have one positional score as best we can. But I do think it's very important when you have cluster injuries, and this is not really for you per se. One of our best new tools this year is actually a fantasy injury calculator where we don't just say, what is CMC's health? What is the running back health? It's what is the 49ers run game health this week, incorporating the offensive line against the Seattle Seahawks defense that week and how healthy they are in terms of what adjustments. And so I think that's going to be a unique tool for some people, at least in the fantasy world and daily fantasy world, et cetera, to take all the projections. And then, because very few people, I mean, everyone kind of looks at the health of the player that you're talking about, especially the star player, but we're looking at the health of the defense and the offensive line, so to speak, and how it multiplies.
Especially when you get the nagging injuries where guys are playing, but they're not playing at 100%.
Well, and those are actually our favorite because, look, you know, at 90 minutes to a game, you can make your adjustments on a guy playing or not. But just because a guy is playing doesn't mean that he's 100%. I mean, right now, we'll talk about it on the podcast, but Matt Stafford practiced today, but did he really practice today? Right? he took a couple of shotgun snaps when everyone else was under center, right? But we'll get to that. But yeah, so that's why we do our 6 scores, et cetera. But we do love your stuff and and you have this distinction, Aaron. Not that I don't like having you on, I do. Okay, but I get busy and confused. You're the one guy that my entire staff has been, as you know, Doug and Taylor and others have been hounding me. When are we getting Aaron on? When are we getting him on? So you are have the distinction of the most requested guest for the Sports Injury Central podcast, at least in our work, and they like your book, etc.
Yeah, well, that's why listeners should be getting the book, because if you guys like the book, then the listeners will like the book. And that's why they should go to ftnfantasy.com/almanac and check the book out. There's my little sales book.
Well, and that's great. Like I said, I have the book here. I will admit to you, I try and be the chef in the kitchen. I'm just about cooking the meal, right? I'm not trying to figure out what the front looks like and what the decor looks like or what the coupons are like or even where you're sourcing some of the food. Like, so I just look at injuries, and I try and look at injuries and videos and not just stick to injuries and stay away from impressions about players, you know, from your stuff to not pollute me. Not that we don't love it. Like I said, our guys really love it, but I purposely make a point of just saying injuries are my lane. I want to ask you about your new. Go ahead. You had.
I was going to say it's like I'm an analytics guy, right? Like we do film work for the book, but Pete personally, I'm an analytics guy. So you specialize in what you do best.
Yes, absolutely. So tell me about this new stat that you've named after me, Dave.
Oh, we've had Dave for a few years. Dave comes from people saying to us that our stats were just a bunch of alphabet soup and were complicated to remember what they were called. And I said, well, it's not like I can just name a stat Dave. So we did. We named a stat Dave. Dave is the rating that we use in the first half of the season or so that combines preseason projection with the in-season ratings. So every week that goes on, the preseason projection is worth less, and the in-season performance is worth more. But preseason knowledge is surprisingly useful late into the season. It's not like it's 3 weeks and then you get rid of it. Like what we knew in the preseason very much is still useful into 9, 10, 11 weeks into the season a little bit. So we mix that with how the teams have actually performed on the field to get a better idea of how they're going to do for the rest of the year.
Gotcha. All right. Tease the top takeaways that someone will get from your book for this upcoming season.
Well, the first is just how amazing the Kansas City run has been, because we have a table in the Buffalo chapter that the best 5-year span for any team over the last 45 years is the Bills of the last 5 years. The best 5-year span for a team that didn't make the Super Bowl. And the second best 5-year span for a team that didn't make the Super Bowl is the Ravens of the last 5 years. So the Chiefs have kept two very good teams out of the Super Bowl, which is another reason why we really like both of those teams this year. Teams that we're higher on than conventional wisdom, I think San Francisco a little bit, Washington a little bit, Arizona, Jacksonville, Las Vegas, although not to be good Las Vegas, just to not be terrible. And teams that were lower on than conventional wisdom, the big controversial one is the defending Super Bowl champions, Philadelphia, but also Houston and the LA Chargers, Pittsburgh and Dallas a little bit.
All right. So why are you low on the Eagles?
The biggest reason is that offense is easier to project and predict than defense. And that team was significantly driven last year by defense. They were the number one defense in the league by our numbers and by a lot. And especially with the amount of personnel that they lost this offseason with guys like Milton Williams and Josh Sweat, Darius Slay, we think that their defense is likely to come back to the pack a bit. We have them as the number 6 projected defense. And then they have the second hardest projected schedule. A big thing is the difference between their schedule and the schedule of the Washington Commanders. The Eagles play the Bills, the Rams, and Tampa Bay, where Washington plays the Dolphins, the Seahawks, and the Falcons. That's a significant difference based on our projections. Frankly, it might be an even bigger difference than our projections if you would get the vibes coming out of Miami camp, which suggests that that team is going to drop a lot more than statistics would suggest, based on subjective, just watching what's going on between players and coaches. So it's going to be tough for Philadelphia. We still have Philadelphia projected as a top 10 team in all 3 phases. So they're still a very good team, but with the tough schedule, we don't think that they're going to, we think they're a good bet to go under their Vegas number, which is 11.5.
All right. What about my former team, the Chargers, and Jim Harbaugh, who I love? Tell me why they are likely to underperform.
Not because of Harbaugh. I think a big thing here is that you look at overall defensive trends, and great coaches do counteract trends a lot of the time. I'm not talking about Harbaugh here. I'm talking about Jesse Minter, the defensive coordinator, because mostly what we have for the Chargers is their defense declining because it improved by such a significant amount last year, and then they lost some guys in the offseason. So we have their defense declining, but if Minter is a really, really good coach, he can counteract that. Now, the offense, I think we have about the same as last year, but there are a lot of questions on that offense, like who's going to play wide receiver at a high level other than Ladd McConkey, and what are they going to do without Rashawn Slater? Now they have to move Joe Alt to the left side. Trey Pipkins is not great. He's now the starting right tackle. Again, cascades. What happens if there are more injuries at the offensive line? You've already lost your best offensive lineman. I think there's some real questions about what's going on with the Chargers for this year.
Gotcha. Well, this is all good. We could talk for a long time, but I'm going to see if Taylor and Doug, 2 of your biggest fans, have a question for you here. I'll give them either one of them a crack at this. You're on, Taylor.
But you're muted.
You buzzed in quicker than Doug did, so you get the question. Go.
All right, I'm on. Sorry, I was muted. You said usually you treat the people that are out as free agencies when they come back on the team in the new year. Name some players that were injured last year, out for the season, that are coming back that you have rated high that are added to the teams.
Oh, I'm trying to remember now who were guys who missed a lot of last year. I mean, one guy not rated too high, but rated fairly high was Christian Wilkins. Mm-hmm. And then the Raiders cut him because he's not healthy again. And so updated projections will, get rid of that from the Raiders. I think Miami, the Miami edge rushers, Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb. I believe Bradley Chubb missed all of last year.
Mm-hmm. If not, so maybe a couple most. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty significant That's a pretty significant one. McCaffrey obviously missed most of the year. Ayuk, we talked about earlier, missed a lot of the year, but we're not like we put him back, but then we took him back out again for the first part of the year.
Right.
I'm not remembering a lot of I'd have to go to my list and be like, oh yeah, here's the list of guys that we did.
Slater's an interesting one for me too, because you're mentioning how the offensive line has to do a lot of shift, and we've documented that before. I mean, a couple years ago, Doc, you remember the Chiefs Super Bowl with Tampa Bay? They had some issues. Eric Fisher tore his Achilles, and they had to move about 3 to 5 different positions around. And then you saw Shaq Barrett and Pierre-Paul crush them in the Super Bowl, right? So
there's no question that was definitely a cluster injury, and the Chiefs didn't have time to react because Eric Fisher, their left tackle stalwart, tore his Achilles the week before, right? And in the championship game. And therefore, then here comes the backup right tackle, because the starter, Mitchell Schwartz, was already out. Backup right tackle to left tackle. So now you're left tackle 2, right tackle 3, and I think the right guard slid to right tackle, which now right guard 2, and I think one of the other positions are already out. So, and then you have 3 guys, 60% of the offensive line playing out of position or first time starting with each other. That's almost a preseason game. And that's obviously the one game where Tom Brady gets all the credit for the win, which he deserves. But Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs did not score a touchdown in that game.
One of the things that a lot of analytics people have concentrated on in the last few years is the difference between a weak link system and a strong link system. A weak link system is one where teams can attack your weakest link. And it doesn't matter if you have a star, because what matters more is how good is your worst player. Whereas a strong link system is one where a star will really shine, because it doesn't matter. So a good example of a strong link system is wide receivers, right? It doesn't matter if your wide receiver 3 is not good, your wide receiver 1 usually can still shine. Whereas offensive line and secondary are weak link systems, right? So often your offensive line is only as good as the worst guy on the 5, which means when you have those cascades of injury, now the worst guy in your 5 is not your 5th guy. He's not your 6th guy. He's like your 9th guy. And then you're really in trouble.
Yeah. There's no question. Like this year, last year, I think the Chiefs struggled based on their tackle play, right tackle and left tackle. How do you swing the protection? And the Simmons, the Ohio State guy, we project him to be completely healthy coming off his patella tendon based on that it was outside leg. And even ahead of the draft, we were like saying this guy is going to be fine and he would have been a high number 1 if they were sure that his patella was fine. And instead, he got to be a very low number 1 with the Chiefs. And I think they have a bargain there. If they really can solidify the left side, then you can, help your right side with protection, right? You can shift it and so forth.
The other guy like that who dropped because of injury, but I believe is going to play, and you can tell me whether you feel he's fully healthy, is Will Johnson, the cornerback of the Arizona Cardinals from Michigan.
Less certain about him based on his injury. Yes, his 6 score is not where Simmons is, and based on the turf toe and otherwise, and the position he plays. And that's what we definitely do. Like a turf toe, like, for example, Josh Simmons, because it's his left patella, we're less likely to penalize him because he plays left tackle with the strong inside leg for the kick out, right? So we literally concentrate on sides and based on the position as well. So it's not, it's not even high ankle X number of weeks. It's the type of high ankle and the position you play. And it's are you a cutting player or are you a power straight ahead running back, depending on the injury, right? And so we do a lot of qualitative factors less than quantitative. As an analytics guy, you have to be super quantitative. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. That's how you make your living, right? And whereas for us and for me, it's a lot of eyeball test. And the other thing that we have in here is recency. For example, going back to the Chiefs Super Bowl against Tom Brady example and the defense. And our number 1 thing there was rushing yards for the quarterback, because we thought he'd be flushed a lot. He hit it the second halfway through the first quarter, Mahomes hit his rushing prop because obviously rushing yards, scramble yards get counted and sack yards. Yes, right. So that was our number one thing that year. But in any case, if that were happened in the divisional round or the wild card round for the Chiefs, they may have had a chance to gel that offensive line. So we have another factor we have is 1 week delta, like the drop or the rise for a certain position group or team in a certain week, we think is significant more than, let's say, the 49ers who've been chronically injured throughout the season. At some point, you got a guy like Mustafa stepping up and doing well, right? And it rises. Whereas if it's a 1 week drop, like it was for the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, we pay a lot of attention to that. So those are some of the qualitative factors and so forth. But I think the marriage, and maybe this is why the guys love you so much, and as do I, because you're so quantitative, and we're very qualitative in everything that we do. So that's kind of what makes the good marriage there. All right.
We tend to do qualitative with words. That's why, obviously, in our book, there's a lot of writing because the qualitative stuff shows up in the writing.
No question. It's a marriage of both. And we, with our sick data package, try to be very quantitative. And you, with your book, are trying to be very qualitative and trying to take numbers. So we're all trying to meet in the middle, right? From all sides there. Well, appreciate this live interaction here. We try to keep you to 30 minutes here. What else do you want? Any parting words for the audience? And then we'll continue with part 2 of the Sports Injury Central podcast. Talk Matthew Stafford and everybody else.
All the FTN Fantasy stuff at ftnfantasy.com. Jeff Radcliffe's projections, and his projections are in the book, but obviously there's updated projections now on the site and everything. And again, the book is found at ftnfantasy.com/almanac. It's got Jalen Carter on the cover right there.
There you go.
All right, sounds good. Well, we probably should reach out to Jeff. Jeff's a friend of ours too, and talk about that fantasy injury calculator that we have. Maybe we can take his projections and then, modify them based off of the 1 week stuff. Aaron, thank you very much. We hope to make this an annual occurrence, and good luck with everything and continued success like always. Appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aaron.
All right. Aaron's dropping off, and we'll continue here with the Pro Football Doc Sports Injury Central podcast. As we make the transition here, Taylor, you got our Believe friends and the job search.
Yes, I have that. I had that prepared in a little bit, Doc. You surprised me.
All right, I'll go. No worries. Let's head to part 2. So the breaking news this morning. We're at 11 o'clock Pacific time live, 2 o'clock Eastern time. 2 breaking news pieces about quarterbacks. Number 1, Matthew Stafford. We'll talk about him. He quote practiced today. And number 2, the Browns have named a week 1 starter, Joe Flacco.
Who knew?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
I do have a topic for you, Doc, while I get this the ad prepared. We did see a bunch of rugby balls on the sidelines in the preseason, and you had some takes about that. I saw Jake Haener, quarterback from the Saints, throwing on the sideline. There was multiple times you saw wide receiver coaches maybe using it. Tell me your initial thoughts and why you may disagree with this whole interaction.
Well, look, I could see a quarterback trying to throw a rugby ball on the sideline in terms of warming up. It's like a donut or swinging 2 bats in the on-deck circle, right? Or a heavier bat, a weighted bat, right? Rugby balls are heavier, bigger, harder to grip, and harder to throw a spiral with. So if you can throw a spiral with a rugby ball, you can with a football. So as a warm-up tool, I could see it. I don't love it. Look, I'm not a wide receiver coach. All I know is all I tell my son, who's 12, is diamond, diamond, diamond. That's how you catch balls.
Yep.
Rugby balls are hard to catch with a diamond because they're bigger. So once you get your hand spread, I don't know that I get why wide receiver coaches do it. I'm not trying to. I'm just like limited usage. but it's teaching you almost bad habits because you want your hands apart when you catch a rugby ball. And look, I've worked rugby. I've not played rugby. I've not played football, but I was the head team physician for USA Rugby for a number of years, including their sevens and Olympics program. I've got a lot of rugby experience. I've messed around with balls on the sideline, but talked to a lot of rugby players, seen a lot of football practices. I don't see that as a benefit to be able to catch a ball. And Rex Ryan teed off on that once on ESPN. I actually agree with Rex Ryan. And he was saying the Ravens did it and they had 5 drop passes and they were bad. And you look at the drop passes, their hands were apart. I'm not blaming that it was just the rugby balls, but I personally don't love it. But I'm not a coach. I get the whole grip thing and maybe as a training tool, but I don't know. I think in some ways it's reinforcing some bad habits. So I'm not a fan of rugby balls for wide receivers. I can see a quarterback throwing one as a warm-up, like a weighted bat,
Yes, that's what I say, the weighted bat.
With a weighted ball. I could see that, but I don't see the wide receivers, doing that. If anything, I would think you would want them to catch a slightly smaller ball, right? And also rugby balls are very sticky, way more sticky than a football. Like one-handed rugby ball catches are not that hard because there's a lot of tack on the ball and such. It's almost teaching bad habits. I don't know. I mean, that's just my thought when I saw it on the sideline. I didn't love it, but I'm not a coach, so to speak. And Rex Ryan, I agree with him on that one. He bashed him.
Well, before we talk about Matt Stafford, Doc, I have a message from our ad sponsor. Finding interns is very difficult when you're running a major business or you have a lot of other stuff on your plate. Right now, it is not difficult at all when you're using ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter finds amazing clients for you, super quick and super fast. Right now, you can try it free at ZipRecruiter.com/audio. ZipRecruiter has a very good technology. Make sure you get candidates that are right for your job, not random ones that are out of nowhere that you've never messaged. You don't get random interviews something that might waste your time. You have to do 4 out of 5 employees have used this product and they've got quality candidates. Try it for free exclusively at ZipRecruiter.com/audio. Again, ZipRecruiter.com/audio. That's the smartest way to hire, ZipRecruiter.
Well, we got a couple of good new interns this year already, so we're good to go. And if anyone does hear this and want to try and get involved, they can try and reach out to you on X or Twitter or something, or Doug, or even at Six Score timelines, and we can try and connect it. But
well, even Doc, before you had me, you used Twitter was your best friend, right? Almost like a ZipRecruiter. Your DMs and messages, people were asking questions all the time, and you use that.
We still have a spotter. Exactly. The guy in Buffalo is awesome. The guy in Cincinnati is awesome. I mean, we still have some spotters that look out for us here. But anyways, so let's talk quarterbacks. The simple one, Joe Flacco. Look, Flacco was always the starter. Now, we talked about it, a month or more ago when it's plus 1,200 on DraftKings. And he's not there yet. I mean, and technically he still could get hurt and not be, because I think
that'd be a bad beat, Doc. That'd be a horrible beat if you had that number, right? And he just picks up something, but he
won't pick up something in the final preseason game. I doubt he's playing, right? But maybe in practice or something. That would be a bad beat. He's named the starter and he still gets hurt. I mean, he is older. That's what we said all along. If you play the clip back, or I'm sure you'll put it on Twitter or something, he said, book it. Barring an injury, Joe Flacco is the week 1 starter. The writing was on the wall, and I was shocked when you told me it was plus 1,200. I was like, that is tremendous. I would have taken him at plus 200. Plus 1,200 was tremendous value in terms of what's going on. And no, the Browns do not have 6 quarterbacks. Okay, yes, they do technically.
In theory.
Tyler Huntley was brought in because they had so many injuries. Pickett with the hamstring, and Dylan Gabriel, who finally returned to play from the hamstring. And Deshaun Watson's not in the discussion. Shador or Gabriel are going to be a practice squad player. And Pickett, unless they do very well, then they both make the team, and Dylan, and then Kenny Pickett is odd man out, right? But Joe Flacco's the starter, and that's what it is. So who's going to be the Rams starter? Like lot of confusion. There's been coach speak coming out of LA and the Rams, but then this weekend it became no speak.
Right.
The fill-in head coach said, I'm not talking about Matthew Stafford. Sean McVay will talk about him.
Just
Sean
throw him
McVay,
Monday.
meanwhile, said he's coming back day to day. It became week to week. There was a false start in returning to practice. Here's the key takeaway from Matthew Stafford. It is not the back that prevents him from playing. It is the nerve issue with pain down the leg that prevents him from playing. This is why this is tricky. How do we know this? That's why you get epidural steroid injections. Once again, the good is Phillip Rivers played all through one season with epidural steroid injections and a herniated disc in his back pressing on the nerve. But Tony Romo, and I'm not calling Tony Romo soft, different magnitudes of disc herniation, missed the rest of a season with surgery. If Matt Stafford has surgery, he's minimum 3 months out, right? And that's pretty much season for the Rams. He's back practicing today, but his 6 score, I don't know that we're elevating much at all. Love to see more video. The only video I saw was 3 quarterbacks all taking snaps. Matt Stafford in the middle, moving very gingerly, guarded in shotgun. The guy to his right and the guy to his left, Stetson Bennett, Jimmy Garoppolo, under center, or stress on the back. You don't usually run drills that way. Either you're all in shotgun, you're all under center. That's why you're lined up next to each other. So I don't think that eases any of my concerns yet on Matthew Stafford. Let's hope they're just easing him in and saying it's dumb to go under center right now. Let's just get you out there and throwing the ball. So I'm not saying that this is a death knell for Matthew Stafford and his herniated disc. It's not a death knell for the Rams and Matthew Stafford playing this year, but I don't see it with the same excitement maybe the rest of the world does. It's a step in the right direction. I'll give that, but I would not say you're out of the woods yet on Matt Stafford based on that very limited video.
Next one I had, Doc, was we had a hockey type injury for one of the top picks this weekend, Travis Hunter. Upper body, they said he missed the preseason game. I just had just wanted to talk to you real quick. Question. I think like if he's playing 2 positions, right? They have him as like the 5th corner and they have him number 2 receiver. If he's not even 100%, maybe 95, 85, do you limit him to just one positional group? How do you mix that up? And tell me how you play through this upper body injury.
Well, first of all, you need to know what kind of injury it is, right? And we don't know that. We don't have any
video.
We don't have any distinction. Now, I'm not saying that he's got a hockey injury. It's his injury report is hockey-like. Upper body, lower body, right?
Yes.
Very non-specific. To be fair to the Jaguars and to all teams, there is no injury reporting required at all, period, right now in the preseason. Injury reporting starts Wednesday before the first game, or Tuesday. I guess Monday before the Thursday game, okay? I mean, that's when injury reporting starts. Then you have to say shoulder or elbow. And you don't even say right or left unless it's a quarterback.
Yes, exactly.
You can't say upper body anymore. But right now, the Jaguars don't need to say anything, right? And so they said upper body. We're just being tongue-in-cheek and having fun about it. But when someone is injured, you go back to what is best. So, for example, we use this example. Let's talk about two-way players. Basketball. They're all two-way players.
Correct.
What happens when an 25-point-a-game scorer is not 100% but playing? They still potentially can get their points on offense, but their defense is going to suffer depending on the injury. It's very hard to go both ways like that. Now, if it's a Dennis Rodman defensive type player with an injury, once again, it depends on the injury. Potentially the defense can be okay. You just concentrate on what biggest value. Right. So, yes, that would probably prevent him, depending on the injury, and we don't know yet, from going both ways. And I don't see it going both ways anyways. It's just, look, I've seen it before on the sideline. Players are gassed when they come off the field. Okay. Hockey shifts are what? 30 seconds long because they're gassed.
Minute. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Maybe less, depending on the shift, right?
Quick shifts. Yep, you're right.
And a long drive is 10 plays, even 8 plays. Players are going 100 miles an hour, 100% for 4 seconds for 8 plays, and they're gassed.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you're going to turn that guy around, flip him the other way, and expect him to be at the highest level?
Right.
Look, I think he's going to play both ways, but he's not going to be every down both ways, and he's not going to be able to excel both ways like that. You're not getting 2 first-round draft picks. That's all I'm saying.
Like even Shohei, it's 1 out of 5 days where he has to do both, right? The other 4 he's doing, and even the DH also helps him out too, right? He's not even in the field. So, I mean, he does both really well, but like you said, you can kind of curtail a way that you can get the most out of both situations, right?
Well, I mean, in some ways, that's a good example. With his elbow injury, he became a DH only, right? And not a pitcher, right? Mm-hmm. One side of the ball, so to speak. He played offense. He didn't play defense. He wasn't pitching, right? Kind of thing. So hopefully Travis Hunter will be fine. I'd love to see him as a two-way player. I'm just saying, I think expectations, he's not going to be a 3-down defensive back.
Next one
and for fantasy, if you're drafting him for the added defensive, I don't see it.
Not as big as value as you think. Yeah. So I have another one. So you always have different kinds of reporting. You say, I have lower body injury for running back from the Dolphins. Devin, I'm going to get this wrong every time. Achane. Lower body soft tissue injury, doc. So they gave a little bit more information here. And we do know the style of running back he is. Speedster, on the outside. Tell me your thoughts on this kind of injury with a little bit of added information.
I mean, is it a calf strain? Is it a hamstring? Is it a quad strain? Those are the 3 leading candidates. Lower body soft tissue.
And we don't like to do that, Doc. We don't like to guess. We like to do more information.
Yeah, but the bottom line is it's somewhat worrisome based on the style of runner that he is, but also somewhat worrisome is that it didn't happen in late July. It's mid-August. Like, we're much less worried about Justin Jefferson's lower body soft tissue injury because it happened as camp opened. We don't like that he doesn't get to mess with his new essentially rookie quarterback, but we think the injury is going to be fine. Whereas Achane now, it's mid-August. The season is 3 weeks away here. A soft tissue injury can easily leak into the regular season now, where it was easier to contain when the season was 6 or more weeks away.
One other one I have, Doc, running back is Kenneth Walker, running back from the Seahawks. He's had a lingering foot injury. They've documented as soreness. Like you said, you don't really need to say much in the beginning. Soreness with his foot since August 1st. He's participated in some drills, but they've held him out of practice. It's now almost, the middle of August, nearing the end. They've asked the coach about the soreness, if he's dealing with some foot issue. The coach said yes, and then immediately moved on to another topic, right? So interpret coach speak as you will. Is this something to have a red flag as you're drafting, fantasy draft is late in the season, that there's a foot injury that he has early in August and it's lingering to late?
I don't know that it's a red flag as in do not draft. At some point, everyone is very valuable depending on the round, but at least a yellow flag, like, if you've got other options, you might want to go with safer options. And I think we're slated to have the Elvin Silva podcast and talk about the draft and specific things there. But I'm not trying to be the draft expert that Evan Silva or Jeff Ratcliffe is. But from an injury perspective, if you like someone anywhere close to where you like Kenneth Walker at running back, you might want to take the other healthier guy at this point in time and let one of your competitors take Kenneth Walker. It just would be safer, depending on. Now, at some point, if he really drops in your draft, of course you should take him. Of course you should take him. So we have his 6 score lowered. I don't have it off the top of my head, but It's not a healthy 95, but he's not red, do not draft. He's going to be in the yellow.
I have him
lane.
at 86 here, Doc, like a little bit above yellow, just because we're mild on him, maybe. Yeah. One I have on a low. Yeah. You maybe go
the
lower.
closer we get to the regular season without him back, I mean, he's going to cross into that yellow line, into the 84s and then lower. Yes.
I've seen some analysts deem this player as non-draftable. You've told me this person is a clear red flag, is Joe Mixon. I've been reading and seeing reports on the Houston backfield. Their backup is Nick Chubb. They also have Damon Pierce, who's dealing with a quad injury, who's not practicing either. So this is a running back room that is very injured. And then now you have the Joe Mixon situation. They had NFI. We did on a previous podcast talk about how you don't normally put veterans on NFI normally. You now have this lingering case. We're getting closer and closer in the season, Doc. We have fantasy drafts in a week or so. He's almost undraftable in your eyes, or like you said, maybe value just on the information on the footage.
Well, everyone's draftable at some point in time, but there's the story will come out.
Yeah.
I've always said, when something doesn't make sense to us from the outside, it does from the inside.
Right.
We just don't know what it is. The Derek Carr shenanigans in the Saints. We didn't know what that was, but when it got reported by Rap Sheet that he might need shoulder surgery, we're like, that can't be news to the Saints.
Mickey Loomis wasn't surprised. Yeah.
Correct. That was just negotiating strategy.
Right.
I'll retire and you don't owe me any money, but don't claw back my original signing bonus, right? And they were working that out, and it makes sense. They weren't surprised inside. No one in Houston is surprised about what's going on with Joe Mixon. They know. They just haven't told the world. And that organization, Nick Caserio, they're very tight-lipped. But here's the thing. NFI is non-football injury. Yes, we apply it to college players all the time because what the NFL means is non-NFL football injury. Right. So if you tore your ACL in college, the NFL says that's not a football as we see it injury. Joe Mixon didn't get put on PUP. He got put on NFI, non-football injury. If it's a lingering injury from last year, that's football. If he did it working out, it'd be a slap in the face to a veteran. Said, you worked out in good faith alone away from us, and you got hurt, and we're putting NFI on you, potentially able to not pay you.
Yeah.
That would be a slap in the face of a veteran. And if he did hurt it doing football activities under supervised conditions, that's a collective bargaining agreement violation. So based on the NFI designation, something's not right there. Did he do it? I'm not saying this is a Najee Harris firecracker thing, but that's NFI, right?
Yes.
Joe Mixon, you can't expect everyone, the NFL during the labor grief a couple of years ago, they said, well, if you work out away, you're not coming to OTAs and you work out away from the facility, we're going to put NFI on you. That was a negotiating power play. Mm-hmm. In a normal sense, you can't get into NFL shape only doing OTAs. OTAs are only part of what you do because they're so limited in what you can do for OTAs. Right. You have to be working out on your own. And if you're going to penalize guys for working out on your own with NFI, you're going to have a riot in your locker room. So this is why I'm saying there's something, the story will come out, but there's something not right with this Joe Mixon injury, whether he's not getting the treatment for an injury, a workout injury or an injury last year that they wanted him to, or somehow that treatment made him worse, or he hurt it outside of football activities, or he didn't report the injury in a timely fashion. There's some story that will come out, and you can bookmark this, that will explain the NFI. Right now, we don't know what it is, but yes, I would say you have to temper your expectations for Joe Mixon because of that tremendously. And we've been saying that for a few weeks now.
And all this information, Doc, all these insights are in our NFL injury guide that is with our sick data and sick pick package that has multiple players and multiple insights, including the Mixon that we've talked about previously, like you said. Real quick, I want to jump to a baseball injury, Doc, that was pretty significant. We always talk about blood clots in football and how it's a big deal. On Saturday, the Phillies put Zach Wheeler, one of the Cy Young candidates, on 15-day IL. He after pitched on Friday, 5 innings, he felt heaviness in his right shoulder. He told that to the trainer, and they ended up diagnosing him with a right upper extremity blood clot. Tell me your thoughts on what your projection. This is a clear playoff team. They're in tight division race with the Mets. So tell me your thoughts on his injury.
Blood clot depends on why blood clot. And there's a wide variety of reasons to have blood clot. Some of that can be cured with medicine, some are cured with surgery. But the bottom line is the resolution won't be quick. At this point in the season, mid-August, there's no question in my mind his regular season is done. But it would be a complete upset if he came back at all, including the playoffs, because the timeline is too short. 3 months, reasonable chance to come back if it's something solvable. 6 weeks, maybe if you're fast lucky. There's not 6 weeks left in the Phillies season unless they go to the World Series, and even then that would be an early return. I don't know what type of blood clot it is, but a blood clot in his right shoulder, upper arm, no bueno as far as the 2025 regular and postseason. It would be an upset if he returned this season, including postseason, for your Phillies as you're repping.
Giving the bad news with the hat on. Yes. Doc, and then also, with the football season starting, we still are doing WNBA at a exceptional rate, giving out those picks and injury report.
We got some high props and some guys that think they do WNBA. They reached out to me saying, boy, your WNBA picks have been on fire, and they think that they've got good WNBA stuff because there's not a lot of noise on injuries. So we control the injury market. Like in NBA, there's more noise on injuries. So other pundits and handicappers can incorporate the injuries. WNBA, there isn't the injury analysis that's ready available out there. So I think that's where the advantage is. All right, great having Aaron Schatz on, DVOA guy, FTN Football Almanac for him. And unless there's anything else, I'm going to wrap up before clinic. Actually, I had to do something. Do the cool kids do this nowadays? I just got a cameo request. It actually popped up on my phone.
Are you doing like a lot of people are doing like fantasy draft, they're giving them like the selection randomizer and they're getting celebrities to do that. So it might be something like that. I don't know, but you are in the cameo as a celebrity person giving a cameo. So you're in that group, I guess. Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I can't wait to go home and tell my son about the latest cameo request. I'll admit, this is the time of year that I get them, with fantasy drafts and what have you. I think this one is more a celebratory one. I'll do that in a second here. And the money go to charity. You can go to Cameo, ProFootballDoc, whatever. But I can't wait to tell my son about it and then have him fire back with D-list celebrity. I know it's coming, but it's fun to egg him on. Kind of deal. All right. Thanks for listening and watching. And ZipRecruiter, thanks to you again, and Believe Network. And very excited about this upcoming season. Remember, our podcast cadence will change. Sunday night, when we get down to one game, Sunday afternoon, we'll be on to talk about the regular pod. Get a jump on the rest of your fantasy leagues and the lines for next week. And then we'll recap it Monday morning and daily stuff as needed. And the big exciting thing is the halftime injury chats will continue, but on Sundays they will be live from the war room and include the great Steve Fezzik as part of it with a lot of halftime insights. And that will be appointment viewing. I think we're looking at West Coast Pacific time, 11:30. That would be 2:30 Eastern time. And then, of course, 2:30 West Coast and 5:30 Eastern time for the second set of games, etc. All right. Thanks for listening and watching. And we'll see you again probably earlier than next week as the season ramps up. We still got to get Steve Fezzik on, Evan Silva, and probably a couple others, all related to the season. Look, I think the season's here at this point because nobody's playing in the final preseason game of note. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, what happens every year has happened. At least half the teams have a starter or someone they're counting on go down for the season in the preseason or training camp. And that's happened again here. So hopefully there won't be any more. Teams tend to shy away in the last preseason game, even though it's a couple weeks away from the start of the season. They tend to shy away from playing guys they might count on for the season. So thanks for listening and watching.
Thank you. Like and subscribe.